Hello and welcome viewers. You're with me, Dr. Surbhi Unial, and I teach philosophy at the School of Liberal Arts, Bennett University. Viewers, we have been doing a lecture series on Indian knowledge systems. In the last lecture, we talked about the basic tenets of Indian knowledge system. And in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the core principle of Indian knowledge system with a special reference to Dharma. So, if we first talk about what is Indian knowledge system, which we have already covered in our last lecture, then it is which is also known as Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, wherein we discuss what are the knowledge systems that have generated, originated and have been prevailing in the Indian subcontinent. And since our focus here is to be more specifically talk about the philosophical knowledge systems in India, I would be taking up discussions and concepts from the different Indian philosophical schools. To talk about the core principles of the Indian knowledge system, we will focus upon Dharma, Karma and Moksha. So, the concepts of Dharma, Karma and Moksha occupy a foundational place in Bharatiya Gyan Parampara or Indian knowledge system, offering insights into ethics or morality or metaphysics and the philosophy of life. Dharma, if I talk about, it encompasses diverse notions like duty or righteousness and moral responsibility, serving as a guiding principle for maintaining social harmony and personal integrity. It prescribes ethical conduct and obligations based on one's role in society or the stage of life and situational contexts, emphasizing the pursuit of justice and truth. So, if we focus upon what Dharma really means, because Dharma, not talking about the term in the way we use it in a day-to-day life, which sometimes get correlated with religion, but when we talk about Dharma in Indian philosophy, or if you take Dharma in our ancient texts, it basically talks about the duty. So, Dharma is correlated or equivalent to duty and righteousness, which is the moral responsibility, which serves as a guiding principle of what kind of action and how we need to perform an action in the society. And Dharma acts as a guiding principle in that. So, it is seen as a moral or an ethical principle which tells us about how we need to pursue truth and justice. On the other hand, if I talk about the other core principle of Indian knowledge system, which is Karma, then Karma represents the law of cause and effect, asserting that every action, be it physical, mental or verbal, they inevitably produces corresponding consequences. So, whatever actions we do, be it the physical actions that we are doing or the mental action or the verbal action that we are doing, they all have corresponding consequences. So, the principle of karma talks about this relationship between the cause and the effect, that what action you perform and what consequences it's going to produce. So, it highlights personal accountability and reinforces the idea that one's present circumstances are shaped by past actions, while future outcomes, they depend on the current choices. So, whatever we are going through in this life, is shaped by the karma that we have done in the previous life or the past actions that we have performed, which are getting reinforced in the present, while what is going to come in the future is dependent on our current choices. So, the concept of karma is deeply embedded in Indian philosophy and spirituality, originating from the Sanskrit root kri, which means to act or to do. It fundamentally refers to actions, whether physical, mental or verbal, and their consequences. So, in Indian traditions, karma is not just about external deeds, but also encompasses intentions and thoughts, recognizing their role in shaping the future outcomes. So, if we talk about the etymology of the term karma, then it has come from the Sanskrit root which I have just mentioned, which is kri, which means to act or to do. And this doing or this acting is not just a physical act, but also what you think, also what you say. So, it is both or you can say it's along with physical, it's also mental and the verbal, and what consequences it is going to produce. So, it's not just the external deed, that the external action that we are performing, but also our intentions, also our thoughts, which are going to shape our future outcomes. So, the principle of karma serves as a moral compass in everyday life, guiding actions based on ethical considerations. For example, acts of charity, truthfulness and compassion are seen as accumulating positive karma, whereas deceit or harm generate negative karma. So, if we talk about the kinds of actions that we are doing, then we can say that acts like charity, being truthful, being compassionate, being kind, all these are considered to be positive karma. So, we are accumulating positive karma when we are doing such kind of acts. While if we indulge in activities like deceit or any other kind of harm, then that would generate negative karma and then would have a specific kind of consequences in our life. So, the belief in karma helps in self-discipline and encourages individuals to take responsibility for their actions. Indian philosophy categorizes karma into three types based on its temporal influence, providing a comprehensive view of how past, present and future actions are interconnected. So, based on the temporality of the karma, what has been done in the past, what we are doing in the present and what is going to be there in the future, they are all interconnected, and we will see that how these three are interconnected. So, if I talk about the sanchit karma, which is accumulated actions, that represents the sum total of actions, both good and bad, performed in all previous lifetimes. It acts as a storehouse of past deeds that influence one's tendencies and circumstances in present. So, the sanchit karma basically it is the sum total or the accumulation of the kinds of actions that we have done in our previous life or previous lives. It is both, it includes both good as well as bad actions. So, it is considered to be a storehouse of past deeds. And these storehouse of the past deeds have an influence on the present. So what circumstances, what situations we are in the present are determined by these accumulations of good and bad actions in the past or in our previous lifetimes. Then is prarabdha karma. So prarabdha karma, which is actions shaping the present, refers to that portion of sanchit karma which has ripened and manifests in current life. It determines one's present experiences and cannot be avoided, much like an arrow that has already been shot. So it talks about manifesting, or you can say the actions, the sanchit karmas which get ripened in the current life, which then determines one's present experiences, and these cannot be avoided. And the example which states that once an arrow is shot, we cannot control since it has already been shot. Then comes kriyaman karma, or the ongoing actions influencing the future. It represents actions performed in the present moment that actively shape the future. Unlike sanchit and prarabdha, this form of karma is within an individual's control. This, since it is in individual's control, this tells us and emphasizes on the role of free will and moral responsibility. Since these actions are the actions that we are doing in the present moment, and since we are doing an action in the present moment, that it tells that how an individual chooses a particular kind of action, be it good or bad, and they have been chosen out of the free will that an individual has. And because an individual had a free will to choose and to control the type of action that one performs, therefore comes the question of responsibility, because one was free to choose from the alternative possibilities and one has chosen a particular kind of action. So the person is held responsible morally on the kind of action one chooses. And this then is carried forward, as we can say, to our future, and that's going to shape the kind of future that we would have, depending on good and bad actions that we have or we are doing in this present life. So, if you do good actions, the future will have those particular kind of good consequences, and the same is with bad. If you do bad actions, bad consequences would follow in the future. Moving from karma to, let's talk about the third kind of principle in the Indian knowledge system is moksha. So while moksha is the ultimate goal of spiritual pursuit, representing liberation from the cycle of birth, death and rebirth, it is attained through self-realization or detachment, or through the unity with the divine or the ultimate reality. So moksha, if we talk about in different philosophies, in different religion in the Indian subcontinent, then it has varied perspective onto how we can get liberated or how moksha can be achieved. So there are different terminologies, there are different concepts of moksha in different religions and different philosophies. So let us discuss some of those. So if you talk about moksha from the Hindu perspective, then it is considered the Paramarth, which means the highest purpose of human life. And this highest purpose would be achieved by surpassing the other goals, where Dharma, righteousness, earth, which is the material prosperity, and Kam, which is the desire, while Dharma becomes the ultimate purpose. Similarly, in Buddhism, it is equated with Nirvana, which is freedom from suffering, while in Jainism, it is Kevala Gyan, which is pure knowledge and liberation from the karmic bondage. So, if you talk about Indian, or you can say even within the Indian subcontinent and within across Indian philosophies, there are different perspectives on the idea of moksha and how it can be achieved, and the different terminologies. So, in the if you take it from the Vedic perspective, then moksha is considered to be the highest end. And this highest end, if we consider it from the point of view of the Purusharthas, and we would be coming to that how Purusharthas, which are considered to be the ultimate, you can say the earth of the Purush, or the meaning of life, and within those the Dharma, Arth, Kam and Moksha being the four core principles there. And ultimately it is the moksha that serves to be the highest goal, and this highest goal is realized once once we do our actions out of duty, dharma, or through the knowledge. And therefore there are multiple paths of attaining moksha. It could be through gyan, which is knowledge, it could be through bhakti, and it could be through karma. So, these are different paths that we can follow in order to attain moksha. Let's talk about the Gyan Yoga, or you can say the path of knowledge and wisdom that would lead to moksha, which is also called the Gyan Marg. So, Gyan Marg in order to achieve moksha. So, it focuses on intellectual inquiry and self-realization through the study of scriptures like Vedas and Upanishads, and in doing so, it's a contemplation on the nature of the self, that what is the self, and whether this self, the Atman, how that can be seen in relation to the ultimate self, which is the Brahman. So, realizing this, the ultimate, the Brahman, is considered to be attaining moksha, and that can be attained through the right knowledge. So, knowledge becomes the path of liberation here, wherein we focus on the intellectual inquiry, and this intellectual inquiry about, you can say, the inner self, or knowing the ultimate reality, which is the Brahman, or the ultimate soul, if you talk about. So, this is one of the path of attaining liberation. And if it involves in how we discriminate between the real and the unreal. So, real being the eternal, unreal being the temporary, and it culminates in realization of the unity between the individual Atman and the, or you can say the individual soul, which is Atman, and the supreme reality, which is Brahman. So, in order to attain liberation, we need to realize this unity of the individual with the supreme. Then is Bhakti Yoga, or the path of devotion or love, which would lead to liberation or moksha, which emphasizes love, faith and surrender to a personal deity. For example, Krishna, Shiva, or any different types of devis. So, it's like a devotion, it's like a love, faith and surrendering to these personal deities that would lead to liberation. So, through prayers, through singing hymns and rituals, devotees, they develop a deep emotional bond with the divine, and transcending. With this relationship, they transcend the ego and the attachments. And in doing so, they attain liberation. So here surrendering and the path of devotion and faith serves as a path to transcend the ego and the attachments. The Karma Yoga, or you can say the Karma Marg, which is the path of selfless action. It focuses on performing duties without attachment to results or the consequences, as it has been outlined in Bhagavad Gita. So actions are seen as offerings to the divine, ensuring purity of intention and freeing the soul from the karmic bondage. So performing an action with the sense of duty and action as an offering to the divine with pure intention, that helps in freeing the soul from the karmic bondage, and hence is seen as another path of liberation. Then comes Raj Yoga, which is a path of meditation and discipline. Based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, this path emphasizes mental discipline, meditation, and physical practices like asana and pranayam to attain the inner stillness, to attain the inner calmness. So it involves the mastering of the mind and senses to achieve the deep state of meditation or the deep state of samadhi and self-awareness. So with the as it has been stated in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where how through mental discipline we can meditate and meditate on to the level of that we can call as samadhi, wherein you realize the self-awareness, and this can again lead to liberation. So we can see that there is these are the core principles in the Indian knowledge system which we have discussed, which is Dharma, Karma and Moksha. In the following lecture, we will talk more elaborately on the context of Dharma, that how Dharma has been taken up in Indian philosophy and different Vedic scriptures, and how that serves as a core principle in Indian knowledge system. So thank you viewers, and please stay for the next lecture.